In 1979, a revolution toppled Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi in Iran. It was a seismic event, one that shook the region and had profound effects on the Middle East for decades to come. Toppling the Shah, widely seen as a Western puppet, meant the U.S. and U.K. lost one of their closest allies in the region. The Pahlavi dynasty had collapsed and, with it, Iran's imperial state. A key figure inside this revolution was Ali Khamenei. He was a protege of the Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, the architect and the face of the Iranian Revolution. In 1981, Khamenei became Iran's third president, a position widely regarded as ceremonial. But after Khomeini's death in 1989, he was elected as the next supreme leader, a decision that would shape Iran's political direction for more than 3 decades. Over 35 years later, that same establishment is under attack. After Israel launched surprise strikes on Iranian nuclear sites and assassinated senior military commanders, Iran responded with missile barrages. The United States soon joined the conflict, bombing key Iranian facilities. Now, with a fragile ceasefire in place, Khomeini has reportedly gone into hiding and has named 3 clerics as potential successors in case he is killed. So who is Ali Khamenei? One of the most powerful and polarizing figures in the Middle East. A man who has called for the elimination of Israel, refers to the U.S. as the Great Satan, stood by Syria's Bashar al-Assad during more than a decade of brutal civil war, and now possibly faces the end of his long reign. Born into a clerical family, Khomeini had trained under Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, the man who would lead Iran's revolution, and now become its first supreme leader. Khomeini actively opposed Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi in the 1960s and 1970s, and was imprisoned multiple times. After the 1979 Islamic Revolution, when the Shah was overthrown, Ruhollah Khomeini, who had been in exile since the mid-1960s, returned to Tehran from France amid jubilant crowds and widespread support. Since then, Ali Khamenei rapidly rose, serving on the Islamic Revolutionary Council as a lawmaker, deputy defense minister, and helped organize the Islamic Revolution Guard Corps, which became one of Iran's most powerful institutions. In 1981, he survived an assassination attempt attributed to the leftist Furqan group, which left him paralyzed in his right arm. Following the assassinations of President Mohammad Ali Rajai and Prime Minister Mohammad Javid Bohoner in August 1981, Khamenei ran and won the presidency with 95% of votes in an uncontested election. During his presidency, he focused on consolidating clerical power and managing the 8-year war with Iraq, advocating for unity among Third World governments at the UN in 1987 to gain support against U.S. pressure on Iran in 1989. The end of the Cold War between the U.S. and the Soviet Union marked a major shift in global politics, which also impacted Iran. Khomeini's death on June 3, 1989 marked a key turning point. Just months earlier, his chosen successor, Ayatollah Montazeri, had been dismissed for advocating political pluralism. The Assembly of Experts, a council of clerics, chose Khamenei to be the new supreme leader even though he had not achieved the required rank among Shia clerics that the Constitution stipulated. Marja Taqlid, source of emulation or Grand Ayatollah. Changes to the Constitution were made sense, stating that it was more important for the office holder to be aware of the times, and therefore politically minded rather than derive their authority solely from religious qualifications. At the same time, the executive powers of presidency were also enhanced. His unconventional ascent led to a dual leadership with President Ali Akbar Hurshbi Rafsanjani. Khamenei has faced opposition from within the establishment, including the presidents that have served under him and the broader population. In the 1990s, his conservatism often clashed with President Rafsanjani's liberalizing tendencies. And with the election of Iran's fifth president, Mohammad Khatami, in 1997, this conservative outlook persisted, acting as a counterbalance to Khatami's efforts to open Iran to the West. Iran's sixth president, Mountain Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, who was initially seen as close to Khamenei, faced criticism over his governance and later clashed with the supreme leader. His disputed 2009 re-election sparked Iran's largest protest since the revolution, followed by a harsh crackdown on dissent ordered by the supreme leader. In 2015, moderate President Hassan Rouhani negotiated a landmark nuclear deal with the world powers with Ayatollah Khamenei's backing. but the Supreme Leader blocked broader reforms. Rouhani's failure to ease economic hardship, which worsened after Donald Trump abandoned the nuclear deal in 2018 and renewed sanctions in Iran, sparked mass protests in November 2019 with death to the dictator. Chance against came. Iranian security forces, reportedly under the orders of Khamenei, killed 1,500 protesters. The death of Mahsa Amini in autumn 2022 after being detained by the morality police for allegedly wearing her headscarf improperly triggered months of widespread protests, some of them calling for Khamenei's removal. The Supreme Leader attributed the descent to foreign interference. Khamenei has remained suspicious of relations with the West, particularly the United States. As president in 1981, Khamenei vowed to stamp out deviation liberalism and American-influenced leftists. Though he didn't oppose the 2015 nuclear deal, he criticized Rouhani for trusting the U.S., later declaring Trump's 2018 withdrawal a predictable mistake. After the U.S. killed his close ally Qasem Soleimani in a 2020 drone strike, Khamenei vowed severe revenge, calling Iran's missile attacks on U.S. bases a slap on the face, but said more than military action was needed. As part of his vision of a region free from U.S. forces, Khamenei established Iran as the core of the axis of resistance. This axis includes allies like Syria, Hezbollah, Iraqi Popular Mobilization Forces, Yemen's Houthis, and Palestinian groups. After the toppling of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad's brain-brutal authoritarian rule in 2024, Khamenei accused the United States and Israel of orchestrating the collapse of Assad's 24 years in power. Iran and Russia had propped up Assad's rule after the uprising in 2011 with military and political support, which spiraled into a war that killed over 500,000 Syrians. Iran and Israel have been enemies since the founding of the Islamic Republic in 1979, with Khomeini declared the last Friday of Ramadan as Quds Day, a pro-Palestinian day, reflecting his opposition to recognition of Israel's legitimacy as a state. Ali Khamenei continued this policy and has repeatedly called for the elimination of Israel. For more than 3 decades, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has been warning the world that Iran is on the verge of developing nuclear weapons, even though U.S. intelligence has said this was not the case. There's only one way to peacefully prevent Iran from getting atomic bombs, and that's by placing a clear red line on Iran's nuclear weapons program. Netanyahu often emphasized threats in talks with U.S. officials. In 2002, he urged Congress to invade Iraq, claiming Iraq and Iran sought nuclear weapons. This invasion followed, but no WMDs were found. Now, more than 30 years after its first warning, Israel launched surprise attacks against Iran, hitting nuclear facilities and targeting senior military commanders and scientists and killing many civilians. The strikes came after President Trump expressed hopes of reaching a nuclear agreement with Iran, and 2 days before, the two countries' negotiators were due to meet again. But as exchanges of fire escalated between Israel and Iran, the U.S. became directly involved with airstrikes against key nuclear sites in Iran. Now ceasefire is in place, and Khamenei, who has gone into hiding, has reportedly picked 3 senior clerics as candidates to succeed him should he be killed.